Welcome to Global Citizen Life Podcast. Today on the show, we have Adam Stuart. Adam, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, I'm happy to be here.
So, first question, just to kind of jump right in, is why did you decide to pack up your family and start traveling the world?
Okay, so why is a great place to start, but I think that it's probably something all of us have felt, and
Mhm.
I don't know that I would love to say that it was this big moment, and it kind of was this crescendo that led up to a moment, but there was just the monotony of I don't know, just life, just career life, and I looked up and I was 34, 35. We just had so we have four boys. I don't know how
Wow.
God blessed us or cursed us with that. It's a blessing. But yeah, so we've got boys that are 14 to 6. And so back in 2018, 2017, kids were a little bit littler. I was traveling like crazy as a corporate salesperson, and things were good in the sense of we were making money. We had a cute little house, and just things were good. I was just exhausted and wasn't feeling very fulfilled. And um, it wasn't even you hear the things about guilt of a parent that I wasn't around. We were doing okay. I was just exhausted, and I wasn't feeling very happy with kind of what like the direction that fulfillment is probably just the one to kind of keep grabbing onto. But
Yeah.
there was like the moment was I was in the car driving to it was like a Monday morning at probably 4:30 in the morning trying to catch an early flight out. And I was just like, what am I doing? Like I just at the end of my rope after a quick weekend and I'm back on a plane and I was just headed to the airport and I just remember like I have got to do something for me. I have got to put something in the books that is I don't know, that my heart gets excited about and we got to go. And
Right.
I didn't know if that meant starting a business. I didn't know if that meant a big vacation. I didn't know if it meant an Ironman. Like I was just like I've got to do something for me. And
Hmm.
uh that's kind of what led to that that put me in that state of kind of dreaming and thinking about what do I want to do.
And I can completely understand that. In we always have things that we perceive, or in theory, something is going to be one way. Like people have thought, oh, well, if I have a job where I travel, that will be nice because I like to travel. And it's like, yeah, it's nice to a certain point. And even for me, I never would really call myself a digital nomad because I've lived in 5 countries, including Canada, where I was born. But I spend generally years in countries, and then I still travel a lot between it. And I remember for a long time, people were like, oh, your life is so great. It's so great. And yes, there were benefits. And yes, I designed it to be that way. But there was a lot of times that, you know what, it's not as glamorous as it seems. It's not as good as it seems. And I remember one time when I was in England, and I was in London, and it was my first time there. And I went and I saw, everyone talks about, oh, Big Ben, like the big clock. And I went there and I saw it and I'm like, nice. It's a freaking clock. Who cares? And I just thought, oh, and I said to myself, I said, okay, Sally, when you're not appreciating the things that you're seeing and the traveling you're doing, it is now time to stop, reevaluate, figure out what you want to do. And that's for all phases and stages of life. So I can completely understand, especially at that 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, getting to the airport, and you're thinking, yeah, this life is not what I anticipated it to be or expect, or it's just not, something's missing.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting is that and we'll talk about, our adventure, but that dreaming and adventure changes throughout your life. I think
Mm,
that like for what you're sharing right there, that moment of maybe being not thrilled or that awe is gone. You might need to take some time at home and settle in and kind of that might be the adventure of kind of some
mm,
discovery on your own. So I've had some people that have come and told us like man, I could never do that freaks me out to think about traveling and taking the kids everywhere. And it's like, then that really isn't your dream. Like not everybody should do that, but I think everyone should dream. Everyone should spend some time thinking about what is their special life or what gets their lights
mm.
their heart on fire a little bit. I think we should dedicate some time to that.
Absolutely. I truly believe that for the most of us, we do get too much caught up in, as we call it, the rat race. of things. Now, some people enjoy it, some people love it, they thrive on it, and great. But it's also, I often say to people, is what is your definition of success? Right? Because
Hmm.
everybody's different, and success doesn't mean the $1 million homes and the Ferraris and things. For some people, it does, but it's almost like society, and I blame the media quite a bit in marketing, that makes everybody think, well, if I don't have those things, I'm not successful, which is completely wrong. Because if we look at it of people who have those things, how many of them are really happy? How many of them are fulfilled? How many of them are addicted to drugs or alcohol or depressed or just plain miserable? So it's not the accumulation of those things for the majority of people. It's looking and be like, what would make me happy? What is success to me? And then how can I go about making that work and live the life that I want to live?
So there's a book that I read years ago, and it might have been around this time. I'd have to go back and check, but it's been on my mind a lot. But and it's kind of funny where it came. But the author's name is Ramit Sethi, but he's a personal finance guy, and the book has a really kind of, and he'll even say it, but like a kind of cliche title. But it's I Will Teach You to Be Rich is the name of the book, and the whole point of it is, what does your rich life look like? Because your rich life is way different than what my rich life would look like, and
Mm.
it's different than my spouse's wife or life would look like. And so we have had some of my favorite conversations have been determining what your rich life looks like. What is, and rich kind of in the sense of like chocolate, rich, deep, something that
Yeah.
you just love. And then
Mhm.
spend money on that, spend time on that type of stuff. And the other, some people, like you said, love work. And I'm going through a phase where I gotta dig into something. I'm going through a big transition, and that's another conversation that we do. But like, I'm really enjoying that process of figuring that out. And so I don't know. That's my rich life right now, is figuring out the next steps. So I don't know.
Right. And
I think we need to spend time doing that.
well, and it's true. And I think like there's a big difference between a wealthy life and a rich life, because a
Hmm.
wealthy life is financial, right? You're wealthy. People have a lot of money, then absolutely they're wealthy. It doesn't mean that they have a rich life. And I think there's a big difference between that. And most people just think, well, rich is wealthy. Wealthy is rich. It's like,
Hmm.
well, it could be a part of it, but wealthy is just, to me, wealthy is just based on finance and money, where we're having a rich life is, yes, my family, my friends, my community, the things I love to do, my work, my health, my wellness, all of those things combine to a rich life, and then for me to a successful life. And the wealth
Yeah.
factor isn't isn't the most important to me.
Yeah, totally. And money has to be a part of this. Like it, I mean, we'd
Of
be
course.
foolish if we said we, didn't have to check that box. But I'm learning a lot about like how, there's a limit that only gets you so far. And we're
Hmm.
lucky to live in this day and age and live in the United States. I don't know. I'm not sure where you are, but like that, right now currently, because you're all over the place. But
Yeah.
yeah, like right now we live in this beautiful place, and we have that opportunity. However, I think priorities just need to be what makes you happy, and what contributes to that rich life.
Absolutely. And as you kind of touched on earlier, it depends on where you are in life. So we have, I call them chapters of life. And we have many, many chapters of life. Some people have more chapters than others, depending upon the life that you live. But what I wanted when I was 20 was different than when I was 30. Now I'm in my 40s, it's changing. And so, and then I've got a daughter. So there was the chapter when she was young and in school, and she's an adult now. So I'm in a different chapter with that. So we all have different chapters. So I talk to people too, and I say, it's not, it's like, where are you right now? Where would you like to be in the next few years? But don't kid yourself thinking that whatever decision that you make, like that's it for the rest of your life. Because that's just, absurd, really. Because we change as individuals, our wants, needs, desires change. Um, we meet new people, they bring new things into our life that we never maybe would have thought about, that now we really like and we're interested in. I mean, Jobs change. When our parents, it was you go to university, you get a good job, you stay at the business until you retire, and then they take care of you for the rest of your life. That's just not the way it works anymore. And so, we have different chapters. So, depending upon if people right now are in the work chapter, the raising kids chapter, combination of that, or the travel chapter with the kids, or solo, or retired. I mean, we're just all at different stages and chapters, and our wants, needs, and desires change with that.
I have a little brother who's gonna have their first baby in March, and it's been funny. He's been on this, we got to put as much money in the bank and got to work as hard as he could, since he graduated college over the last few years. And um, he's having this moment of he said, I'm looking at my New Year's resolutions, the goals, the things that I want to achieve, and compared to last year, this year's just really quiet. And he's stressing. He's feeling this like, man, I've got to do some things that fire me up and push me so hard. And he says, but then there's another part of me that just says, what if my goals were just keep money kind of status quo and really focus on just having a baby and enjoying this first year, like enjoying this transition. I was like, man, it's pretty wise of you. You don't typically drop truth bombs like that, Jackson, but yesterday he was being a little contemplative, and I thought that was really wise. That's good. I mean, not every phase of life is pedal down.
Right, right. And especially with kids. I mean, and because you have four of them. I mean, we don't realize how fast time goes by until you have kids. I mean, as we get older, we realize it, but once we have kids, and we don't get time back. We don't get redos, we don't get start overs. Like, so when those years are gone, those years are gone, just like in anything. But I think with having kids, um, there's things that people tend to, I don't want to use the word regret because it's not regret, but they may have done things just a little bit differently. Like a lot of people tend to say, I wished I would have spent more time with them or did more things. Because I mean, as we get older, they change just as we do, and we just can't go backwards in time. And no matter
When
what, I
we
mean, even if people are there all the time, there's still things that people are like, oh, well, I wished I would have. Like, no
Yeah.
matter what.
Yep, I'm with you. Regret. I don't love that word. I mean, it's probably reality. We're probably just redefining it. But when we as a family were talking about things that last year, what were the great things, and we used the word do-overs. If you could do that over,
Yeah.
what would you do differently? And I like that because we kind of got into a conversation about, well, man, I don't. I mean, things turned out the way, and I learned this lesson, but I would have learned this lesson without it. But had I known what I know now, or had to have that experience pop up again, here's what I would do differently. And I think that's probably a good
Mm.
exercise. I'm with you.
Well, absolutely, because everything is a learning experience, and we don't know, and so it is a little bit easier to look back and say, oh, if I had a do-over, I would do this. It's just because now I know what I know, right? We make
Yeah,
the decisions as best we can with the knowledge that we have or the information that's provided, and we just learn from it.
totally right. Yeah, I mean, what's been funny is I think we kind of romanticize the past sometimes. And
Yes.
and I have looked back, we've got like a Google display, and then it actually is connected to our TV as well. So we'll be walking around the house and you see all these pictures of us and really all over the world. And
Mhm.
this lifetime of travel that we knocked out in 11 months. And I look at that and it's like it's just strange because I can look at that and just see these highlight reels and feel so like that was so amazing and I can't believe we pulled it off, and that's probably a good thing. It's probably good to look back
Mhm.
at that. But if I'm real and I flip through my journal, there were hard moments in that. There were times where we were like, what am I doing? Is this the right move? And even in these dream scenarios, the reality of just the thick of life is I don't know. And I don't know really the lesson there other than just maybe a realization to when you see somebody else or when you look back at times in your life to remember that you were making the best decisions with the information you had, and what we usually see is a highlight reel and not the reality of the muckiness of life.
Right, right. We tend to want to forget about those things. Remember the good. And there was a podcast that I was listening to, or a clip of it, just not that long ago, and I can't remember which one it was, but and I'll don't quote me exactly because I know I'm going to get it wrong, but it was something about when people see us, they want to, they want to live the life of people they admire, people that they think are successful and things, but they don't want to travel the road that it takes to get there. And
Mm.
I think that's quite similar. Like when we even look back, it's, I look back, there's definitely things I do not want to go through again in my life ever and wouldn't wish it upon other people. But at the same point, I wouldn't be who I am without those things. And I know every single person like looks at other people. So I know, for just as example, there's a lot of people who like Elon Musk and I'd love to be Elon Musk and do all the things that he does and have all the money that he has. But I'm like, I wouldn't. To have that brain and what's going on in that brain all the time, 24/7 and everything, like people don't really look at the challenges that it takes to reach the benefits of things. Because if everything was so easy as we kind of perceive, like the overnight success, but it took 10 years to become that overnight success, change is hard. Success is challenging, and a lot of people don't want to put in the work to reach that point. And so it's kind of glamorized and only the positive is seen. And even if we see somebody go through rough times, we also forget about the rough times that they went through to reach the destiny that they're at.
I have a really good friend who's a chiropractor, and excuse me, he has been working hard at this. He's moving in towards his own practice, moving from being an employee to kind of buying his practice, and then he's actually had a couple opportunities to add new offices to his. He had the one in one city, and then had a friend that was leaving, and so he's just been on this big expansion. And I have been in this with him just as a friend, just like being there kind of his cheerleader, telling him, "You've got this." But I know the weight on his shoulders. I know how stressed he is. I know how, the risk he feels like he's taking. And what's been funny is in a couple conversations lately, I've heard someone tell him, like, wouldn't it be nice to have things just fall in your lap like that? And I'm like, you don't even know what he's going through. Like, you don't know the weight that he's carrying. It's just funny. It was it totally took me by surprise. It was a mutual friend of ours. And I was like, man, if you only knew, like, you are choosing to focus on this tiny little piece of success and not the everything else that comes with it. And so, yeah, there's a lot of lessons there.
Absolutely. It's the somebody I got an email one time. I think it was my aunt. She's like, you're so lucky. You have, this great life and you're traveling and doing things. And I said, yeah, the years of hard work and the sacrifice and the giving up and the missing out on a number of things, that's what's made me lucky. It's all the hard work that has put me in the right, I can't even say the right place at the right time, but it's all the hard work that I've done to design my life. That's not luck.
No, totally not
Like
luck.
luck is winning the lottery. Right? You can't win if you don't buy a
Hmm.
ticket, so you still have to do something to win the lottery.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I hear you.
So, so when you first started to travel, how did that go when you just said to, your wife, like things have got to change, and then you two decided that you're going to travel, and then you told your kids, like, what did your kids think when you just said, "Hey, we're just going to go travel the world for a while," or did you know it would be for a certain amount of time, or like, how did those conversations go?
Oh, I love it. So it's again the story that you would probably see on Instagram, is one day we just woke up, we sold everything we owned, our cars. I bought those shipping containers that they put on big
Hmm.
boats and move around. So we bought a shipping container and put almost everything, the last little bits of stuff that we hadn't sold, into that shipping container. And we took off. We literally drove away and my parents took us to the airport. We each had a carry-on and a backpack, and that's what we did. And we took off for about 11 months. And so if that's the story, that sounds so wild. And that is what happened. That's exactly the process. Is the day we pulled out, there was just nothing. And that's what we did. And I remember looking back on our little life and being like, man, we are doing this. And
Hmm.
but what led up to that was years of thinking about it and kind of honing into what this adventure would look like for me. um, there's an opportunity in most businesses, I think, if you were honest, and to say, could I actually pull off a 1 to 2 month to 6 month sabbatical? And that seems crazy because even I'm in a sales position, like that's where I've been my whole life. it seems crazy to even think that, but it is true. Like if that was really important to me and I wanted to stay with any specific company, they might not hold your position, but if you're a valued employee, they'll find a place for you. I think you could make it work. What was important
Right.
to me was I wanted to separate and just have that moment of like I was purposely trying to put that space in my life of like not knowing what comes next. And
Hmm.
so a lot of like we had talked a lot, but do I want to really pursue some kind of a leave of absence or like an extended, I need to get, kind of a mental health, 6 month clear your head type thing. And the answer was like, it didn't really matter the time we were going to be away. What was really important for me was to take a career pause and so that I could have that space of like, do I want to double down on this career or do I want to shake it up? And so that personally, that was something that was really going through my mind that was important. Like I said, I don't think that has to go for everybody, but for me, that was the point. And then as we started talking, like, well, how long do we want to go? And nice round number was a year that we were like, let's do this for a year. And how much money would that cost for us to do? What would we want to see? And so we started talking to our kids about it. Like, hey, I think, in a few years from now, we're going to have some money. We're going to go on a big trip and we might pull you out of school for a little while. And we got them thinking about it. But really, so much of this was just my wife and I on date nights and, lying in bed, just talking about this. It got a little more formal as we got closer. We told the boys like, hey, this is actually happening. You're not going to go to school next. We're gonna homeschool you, and they were on board. I think we timed
They're
it.
probably thinking, yay, no school.
And it was kind of like that. Like it
Yeah.
was. I mean, we definitely did our. We signed up to a great little program online and had a great
Mhm.
experience with it. But it was certainly less demanding than the
Oh,
8 hour
yeah.
American public school. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I mean that's kind of what happened is we had the boys do like a book report sounds way more formal than it was, but it was like we had them get on, state.gov and look up the country that they were thinking about, what religion, or what language did they speak, what travel advisory level were they on? We weren't going to Russia, we weren't going to go to some hostile nation or something like that. And so we really like it sounds so magical, but it was just like that, a process of elimination, kind of had a chart of the 20 different countries that we thought we were going to touch. We ended up
Mhm.
stopping in 18. Um, but we hit all of the ones we wanted to, with one big exception. We were in Paris in October of 23, and we were planning to spend December in Israel, in Jerusalem. And October
Okay.
6th happened. And so we were like, we're probably not going to go there right now. And so
Change
the
of plans. Yep.
big audible of the whole trip was one tiny little a flight from Italy to instead of Italy to Israel, we went from Italy to Dubai for a month, and then everything just kind of
Okay.
continued on. So yeah, looked at weather patterns and where was going to be the warmest, and made most sense. Our first stop was in Norway, and we were like, we probably shouldn't go to Norway in January, so let's see if we can get
Oh,
there in August, and that's kind of
yes.
how that. But some planning like that, it was good.
That's great. And it's great that making the kids be part of it and learning. And it's such a learning experience for them to see the world differently, um, and different cultures and things like that. I mean, even as adults, but as kids, like it really changes their mindset and their opinion and realizing, how things are so different around the world. Like I never really realized it until I was traveling. Like, I now know that my opinions and my beliefs, they are not right. They are not wrong. They are only mine because of the life I've led, the experiences I've had, the way that I was raised, the things that my teachers taught me and friends. And if I was taken at 2 years old and moved to completely different country, culture, language, everything, my thoughts and beliefs would be completely different.
Oh, that's wild, but it's so true. And you've like if you're only in one place and you're only in one setting and around a certain group of people, you probably won't ever have that realization. And
Mhm.
I think it does take exposing yourself to new cultures, new places. You could probably get it through books and, through social media, but there is something about um I think one of the biggest learnings that I had, and I just had a small taste of this. I lived in Mexico for a couple of years from when I was 19 to 21. And so I had a taste of, oh, there's people that live with a lot less money and live pretty happily. I got that taste as a
Mhm.
young kid. But that doubled, that my experience was just everyone is just trying to live. They want good dinners with families. They want to go out for a walk, in the park. They want to go outside and see nature. They want to have good food and want to make enough money and move their bodies. Most people are just having the human experience, and
Right.
we're all driven towards certain things and motivated towards certain things, and our economic and government situations might change things a little bit, but everybody's just doing the best they can. And I don't know, there's a lot of really good people, and I think in general most people are good people just living life.
I agree. I think, the media loves to go with the negative things and the bad things that are happening because, it sells clicks and time on the website and views and all of that kind of stuff. But generally speaking, when I've traveled, I've been fortunate. I think I've traveled to around 50 countries already. And like as you said, like people just want to live. They want to relax, they want to enjoy, they want to have time with families and friends. They're just good helping people. It's very few that we need to be concerned about that aren't good people. Um, but to me, even when we look at things on YouTube or read books or something, it's not like experiencing feet on the ground. Like standing in a square in Europe and looking around thinking, this square has been here for 1,000 years. And how many, when I'm in there, it's like, how many people have had celebrations in this square? How many people maybe in previous years have been hung in this square? How many fights have happened in this square? How many wedding proposals have happened in this? Like all of those types of things when it's been around for that long. And it's just the feel and the energy of it. And then of course just being there and then the food and the culture and the lifestyle. There's just no way to experience but to be there and experience it.
I totally agree. I was having a conversation with my little sister. She's had this dream. We keep talking about family, so it could
All
be
right.
anybody. But she's just had this dream. Her and her husband want to get to Europe, and I'm kind of like, then go. Like the
Yeah.
reality is like I know that it costs a little bit of money, and there's some coordination with childcare, but like next year you're gonna still want to go, and 10 years from like what's gonna change. And I think about like every time this is such a special thing. Every time you turn on the TV and somebody's going walking next to the Coliseum or walking past the Eiffel Tower, I know what that feels like, and I have that. It's totally different having been in those places than versus just seeing it and dreaming of it. And
Mhm.
I have like I think probably another one of those big learnings is that the world is so accessible right now. And
Yeah.
so yes, flights cost money and you have to prepare, you have to set the time, you have to, do it right financially, but get there. It's not that hard to just go. My wife turns 40 in 2 weeks. I probably shouldn't say that on the internet, but I guess she's awesome. She wouldn't care. But um we were talking about places to go and she was like, "You turned 40 when we were in Australia. So I don't want to be in the country. Like we're doing something fun." And so we were looking, and what was funny to me is it wasn't like a quick trip to Mexico or let's buzz up to British Columbia. It was like the world is our oyster. Like, hey, the flights
Mm.
to Europe are about the same cost as if we went to Florida. Like it's just a flight. And so we're going to the Dominican Republic, which still isn't that crazy exotic, but we
Oh,
were almost
nice.
going to Fiji too. Like that. It was
Oh,
just such
wow.
there were killer flights. So I don't know.
Hmm.
It's awesome.
Well, and I mean, that's just all part of the planning process is, when you look at, obviously you want to go at a time where the weather is nice, whatever that may be for people who love winter when it's cooler, people who like summer hotter.
Right.
And then watching for those flight deals and deals on hotels. And I mean, I'm a true believer and I know inflation's gone up and everything is getting more expensive and people's budgets are tighter and things like that. So I don't say this, without like feeling behind it. But a lot of times, a lot of people spend money on crap they just don't need. And it could be something simple of like I don't go to Starbucks and buy coffee because I think it's absurd to be spending 5, 6, $7 on a coffee at Starbucks. Like
Hmm.
I know I'm not a huge coffee fan, But and some people do that every day. So for me, I'm like, that's crazy. Do you know how much money you're spending in a year? Maybe just go on Friday or start your week off on Monday and be like, yeah, it's Monday. I'm going to start, have a coffee. And then don't for the rest of the week and make your own coffees at home. Or, I don't know, like that's just an easy example. Or people, eat out lunch every day because it's convenient. Well, would you rather travel and go somewhere and see someplace and bring lunch to work every day? Yes, it's a little bit more preparing and planning, but what do you really want? What do you prefer more? And sometimes it is some sacrifices of not having everything we want. But to me, the reward of a trip and being somewhere is far greater than having lunch every day, a coffee every day, or whatever it may be, and those things. And like that every day, you put that money into a different bank account and you just keep doing it. And how much a lot of times it's the little things that really add up that people think, oh, it's only $3, $5 here, there, whatever. You put those $3 and $5 into another account and over a year or 2 years, see where you're at, and you would be able to go somewhere.
I think that goes back to our conversation about the rich life. Like what is it that's important to you? Ramit, in that book, he talks, I'm going to mess that up too, but he just talks about just spend exorbitantly on the stuff that you love and then cut back ruthlessly on the stuff that you don't love because that the stuff that you're spending money on that you don't love isn't giving you any fulfillment anyway. So cut back there. And I don't do it great. I still stop at, the store and or buy a quick lunch here and there, not here and there,
Hmm.
probably way more often than I should. And it doesn't give me any pleasure. But I mean, I think that principle is good, and I do try to apply that because, man, that I know now, having had some of our experiences and where I am at this phase of like what matters to me is experience and getting outside and some of these big vistas. I got a lot more to see.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, that's a little bit of a downfall to for people who haven't traveled and then they go on their first trip. Sometimes when they're like, oh wow, that was amazing. Then I want to go again and again and again and again. And because you don't really realize, to me, because travel for me is so important. Like I think sometimes you don't realize what you're missing out on until you go and then you realize. And the more that I see of the world, like people are think it's crazy you've been to 50 countries. Like that is so much. And I generally try to see at least 2 to 3 cities or regions within each country because they vary so much within that. And yes, on one hand, absolutely it is a lot. But depending upon which thing that you follow that says how many countries and territories and everything else. There's roughly 200 countries and territories and regions and things like that within the world. So I think, hey, I've seen maybe a quarter, maybe. Some are 210. So I mean, it really depends. So yes, it is a lot compared to the majority of people.
Hmm.
Absolutely. But compared to the size of the world, I haven't seen that much, and there's just so much more to see and experience and do. And I mean, you've traveled, let's be honest. Italian food in North America is not even close to Italian food in Italy.
It's just not. It's just not. No, it's just not. And yeah, you're totally right. I think that there was a lot of times when we've been telling people our trip and where, the places that we touched in, and they're like, you were in Australia and you didn't even get over to New Zealand. And I'm like, you're right. Like I would have loved to make it happen, but you can't do it all. And so it's funny,
Right.
like our bucket list just changed. We knocked off these countries, some that we want to go back to, and others were like, hey, we did it. Well, that's wonderful. I know what that feels
Mhm.
like, and there's more. But our list of new bucket list items and places is twice as big now. Like things that we didn't even know we didn't know. But that's just a funny thing is like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you didn't get here. And I know it was only a quick flight away, or it was literally a drive away. I understand, but we only had a year, you know? And yeah, we have more trips planned.
No, it is, and it's once, as I said, kind of once you start, the more you want to do, and it's true because then, I mean, if you try to do too much and see too much, then you're not enjoying the time. And that kind of brings back to when I was in London and saw Big Ben for the first time and was like, whoopee, who cares? It was just because I was like, oh, I'm here. Well, this is close. Okay, then I'll go here. Then I'll go here. Then I'll go here. And it just became like check, 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 check. And I wasn't really going and enjoying and being in a place that was like, yep, okay, you're here for a few days, did all the touristy things. Yep, what's next? What's next? What's next? And that's not a great way to travel either because it's exhausting for one. And it really is missing out on the whole point of travel is to see what it's like and really be there and get the benefits and the challenges of being in a different country and a different culture, and doing more of a slow travel. And I mean, you could spend well, I was living in Spain for a few years. I mean, I still traveled quite a bit, but I still didn't see all of Spain. I've been to Italy 6 times, and there's still so much there that I've never even seen. So, and lots of times it's like I'm in Montenegro right now, and Croatia is 2 hours away from me, and I've had a place here for about 3 years. I don't spend a lot of time here. I have not been to Croatia yet. People are like, "What? It's like 2 hours away." And I said, "I know, but once I get here, I'm here and I've generally been traveling and doing stuff that I just want to chill out and hang out. And then I'm here for a bit of time and I think, oh, I've got to go to wherever. I've got this coming up. So I don't want to think of, oh, I want to squeeze in an extra something because I already have others. And I will get there. And I don't want to go in winter because even here in winter, it rains a lot and it's not that great. Not as bad as Canada. Can't say it
Sure.
doesn't get that cold. So I'm a very seasonal traveler as well, as in following the summer season. I tend to like that to follow the summer season, but there's just no way of I think tried to figure it out one time for me to visit every country in the world that I haven't visited yet. And if I wanted to spend 1 month per country, and 1 month, it sounds like a lot of time, but if imagine for people who are listening, you live in the United States, how many places can you see within 1 month? And financially as well, right? Like I can't afford to be living a month at a time in a hotel, different hotels, like 2 nights, 2 nights, and travel all over the United States. Like that would cost so much money. And how much would you see in a month? There's still things that you wouldn't see in a month. So think of other countries, like even Spain in a month, you're not seeing everything, not France, not Italy, any of those. But anyway, a month, it would take me nonstop travel for 14 years to visit every country for 1 month, and I still would not see everything I, would want to see. And 14 years of nonstop travel month to month to month,
It'd
it's
be
like
exhausting and really
it's
just
so
not reality.
exhausting. I don't even like to
Yeah.
think about it. I'm getting tired thinking
Yep.
about because packing, unpacking, packing. And that's not even, I'm in Barcelona for a month and then I do day trips. Like you would be, say, Barcelona and then want to go to Malaga and spend time in Madrid and go. So you're still having, it's have to pack and unpack and stay a few days or whatever. And it's a lot.
The
Yeah.
first 5 weeks of our trip was really fast paced. We moved through, so we went from to New York. Our kids had never been, New York City, so we spent 3 or 4 days there. Went to Norway, but we were on the move. We were there for 2 weeks, but just 2 nights, 2 nights, 2 nights. Then we went to Germany and did the same thing. We were just moving. Got through Germany, Austria, Switzerland, Liechtenstein. We were just moving. And so that first 5 weeks was so fun. And it was actually, I'm glad we did it at the very front of our trip because we had all this energy. But
Mm.
I remember being like we got on a train and went to Prague, and then we flew from Prague to we were in Prague for 2 weeks, and then spent a whole month. So the month of October of 23, we spent in Paris, and we booked an Airbnb that was kind of in a suburb just right outside the arrondissements. And um it was just the first time that it was like like we just settled into Paris, and then it felt like our trip really started at that moment because we found our
Mm.
favorite place to eat, we found our favorite little bakery, and we figured out our metro stops. And then it was just an exploration in such a fun way. And so I think that unlocked our style of travel was very much, I think you could do it shorter than a month. I think 2 or 3 weeks you could have kind of that same experience. But for us, a month is such a perfect way to, you lock in, you unpack your bags, hang your clothes up, like I'm here, this is home for a
Mm.
month. And that was the first experience that we did that. We kind of tried, it didn't work perfectly, but about that for the rest of the trip was what we really tried to do. So, um,
Yeah.
that was something new prior to that trip that we had gone on. I think I had maybe spent a 5 day vacation in 15 years of, corporate stuff. So that's changed, that's unlocked something. And, I like that slow travel.
I prefer it too, and even for a month, you can still, you can still do overnight trips. Right,
Hmm.
like, so if, being in Paris, you could do an overnight if you wanted to for Nice or Bordeaux or things because you've gotten to know the city, and so you can still see other places, and the train system in Europe. I mean, it's just incredible. It's amazing. So it is
So good.
easier to have that, and it's not as tiring because otherwise, I've had times where I feel like I'm just living out of a suitcase, and I feel like I'm spending more time kind of packing, unpacking up, and getting to the next destination than actually enjoying the destination.
Totally. Totally.
So here's a question that I'm going to ask, even though I hate it when people ask me, because for me, there is no, the answer depends. I'll put it this way, what were some of your favorite places?
That's
Because
a
I'm
great,
sure you don't
I
just
knew it
have
was
one,
coming.
because people
As you
always say,
said it,
what's
I
your
was
favorite? I'm
like,
like, there isn't one. It depends. My favorite for what?
yeah. You can see people kind of catch themselves too, because they're like, this would be a hard question to answer, like, and so it's an interesting question because, um, yeah, for what? Like to visit, there were some really special places to live. That would be a different place. Food, like,
Yeah.
um, we had, we had a pretty special time in Thailand. And I
Mhm.
think the culture there, the food, the cost of living, the weather, we just nailed it. And so, yeah, I think that so it was kind of the first time. We live in the mountains of Utah, and so it's dumping snow and
Mhm.
it's, 0 degrees outside. And and we love skiing, but it was the first time in my life that I spent basically a month in a swimsuit and in flip-flops, like it. And that was the first time I'd ever had that. And to me, there was something special about, we had a little villa that we had rented with its own pool, which was so cheap. Like of all the places we stayed for this month, it was such a great deal. And we would walk out or take the scooter down to, we call her our fruit dealer, like,
Mhm.
back into the alley, and you're getting whatever kind of fruits you'd want. And my wife found this place that made these just amazing little shakes with who knows what, and so that was fun. And then the night markets, we'd walk down to the beach and get Thai massages. And to me, like, I don't know if that's real life, if that's really what could be forever, but that was the first time I'd experienced just kind of that beach life with such a, cool vibe. We did some Muay Thai training. And so the
Yep.
kids, did this, martial arts. And to me, there was just something about that experience that was just so different than where I live and what I had ever experienced, that it got my wheels turning of like, if I enjoy this so much, then how do I start putting this more into my life? And would it take me moving here full time, or maybe I don't know. I just still don't have that figured out, but that got the wheels
Mhm.
turning. I really enjoyed that. We'll get back there.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because I've been trying to get to that region for a few years now, but every year there's just things that have prevented it from happening. But it looks like late this year, I'm going to do Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, and Malaysia, and I'm actually doing it as a bit of a scouting trip to relocate to my sixth country to live in. Will probably be one of those.
Yeah.
Um,
And
so.
it's, I mean, goodness, I'm jealous and like inspired, because it's what's crazy. Like I told you, I'm in this like, pivot time where I'm really exploring about 3 different things. I
Mhm.
invested some money into a business, and so we're trying to get something off the ground while I took an employed position as well. And so this is just a kind of a crazy time, but there is
Mhm.
still part of me that's like, at any given moment, I'm gonna bail on all of this and we're gonna go to Thailand, And what's funny is that's always a joke. Like that sounds like something everybody would say, but it's like, no, this could happen though.
But it could happen.
Yeah, I think if it was just up to my wife and I think that we would be doing something crazy like that and just take a total, why a fork in the road. We've
Yeah.
got 4 boys that thrive in kind of the traditional, they're doing really well with friends, and I think that's important. And so I'm trying to
Mhm.
navigate that, but something's on the on the
Yeah, well, I mean,
horizon.
it's the chapter of life that you're in right now with your kids. And, I do know people that travel with kids. I think it's a bit different if like the ones that I know that it works well for have always traveled with their kids and they've moved like since the kids were born. So it's normal for them to spend 1, 2, 3 years in one country, then go to another because that's been
Hmm.
their whole life. There's pros and cons to that for sure. But there could be ways that you design it that you're there in Utah and they're there, but whenever they have holidays, not that you're going to go to Thailand every time they're on holidays, maybe, or
Maybe
maybe you
do.
go to Mexico, or maybe you check out Cambodia, or maybe those places where if they've got at least kind of 2 to 3 weeks off, because you want to make it worth it to fly that
Hmm.
far because it's far to fly. Um, and you never know. Maybe during those times off, you start to also take that time and go. There's so many ways of designing our lives that it doesn't, for many people, they think it has to be, well, I have to live in one country or I have to leave and be permanently in another, or they think, well, I could do, 6 months and 6 months, like a lot of snowbirds do. But I say to people, I'm like, it doesn't have to be 6 months, 6 months. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. It could be, maybe 2, 3 months you're in one, then you come back for 8 months, and then maybe 3 months you go somewhere else if you're still trying to figure it out, or you're able to go back to that place. And then, of course, it depends. What about your work? What are you doing? Are you, in something where you're slowly stepping away or completely quitting and starting something new? I mean, there's so many ways to design a life. And for each person, it's different. There is no right or wrong way as long as it's right for you and your family.
When we part of the reason we went to Norway is we had done a little bit of like genealogy work, and we knew that my wife and I both had family that had left Norway. And what's interesting is we've done a bunch of reading. There's so many good resources about it, like right now, that if you really kind of track down your family, and there's like journal entries of them just being, taxed to the point where like the economic opportunity was just so small back in, late 1800s. And I think about I'm sorry to get on this tangent, but those guys
Right.
just took a big fork in the road. Like
Yeah.
they could have stayed in this small Norwegian mountain town and farmed
Mhm.
and somehow gotten by. They could have, because I know they could have, because their siblings did. Not
Yeah.
everybody left. It was a brother and a wife, and like it was one branch of the family said, I'm done, or even just one single dude or female just like gets on a boat
Mhm.
and comes across to go chase opportunity. And so I've thought a lot about that. Like, what's the fork in the road? And I, the other thing too is that you're right. I get in this all or nothing kind of phase of maybe if we do Thailand, we're never coming back. Like, no, I mean, that's not actually reality.
I mean, unless you don't want to.
Right. Right.
Right? Like there's a choice. And I think so. My father came to Canada when he was about 5 years old from the Netherlands. And I mean, he was five. He didn't really have a choice, but his
Sure.
family left, but they left all their family still in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
And I think back then though, it was a lot more all or nothing because
Yeah.
it wasn't easy to do the first time, where now we have things so easy that I just was talking to somebody the other day and he says, I really want to just move to France for about 2 years. And I said, then go do it. It's two
Hmm.
years. If on average we live, and okay, it's not exactly average, but just for easy math, like we live to 100, let's say, because more and more people
Yeah.
are. 2 years out of 100 is nothing. And the experience that you have and the things that you remember, that maybe it turns into more, or maybe you realize, you know what? Actually, I do like the United States more. Or, wow, this was France. I don't know, what is Thailand like? What is Australia like? What is Turkey like? And it could be
Hmm.
just that opening door, but it's not once you go, you can never go back.
Yeah. We're looking at buying a house, and I'm stressing about it. And my brother-in-law, we were talking about this last weekend, and he was like, Adam, you're making it sound like once you do this, you're never gonna like you can't, you're there
You're
forever.
stuck
And
forever.
yeah, and he was like, it's just a house. You can sell it. Like you can just if you don't like it, then you just move on. And maybe you take it, maybe you lose money or maybe you make money, but you can it's not permanent. And I've got to
Right.
remember that. And um I don't know why, but I think maybe it's because we've been so like shaky and moving around that I'm trying to put some roots down. On the flip side, the other split side of me is like, I gotta get out of here. I need some more adventure. So
You sound
it's a
so much
process.
like me in so many ways. Like I have this thing on each shoulder, and one part is what the society norm is, where you have your job, your house, your community, you live by your family, you do all those things, you take your 1-2 vacation a year, and you have the majority lifestyle. The other part is, heck no. Why would I want to do
Yeah.
that? There's a whole world to see. There's all these places. Now, there are things about with how much that I move around that I do miss of having community, and I'm really thinking that this next move I'm going to look at a lot more serious because I'm wanting it to at least be a place that I don't want to say it'll be my forever, and maybe it'll be one of my forevers, because my goal is to have property in 3 countries, one property in 3 countries. So I'm always in summer, great weather, and traveling, and that's an ideal for me right now. Who knows? Give me 10 years, I could change my mind and say, forget it, I don't want to do that. But that's my thought right now. But and the reason why with those though is I want to make sure they're in places where I do have community around, which is hard if you're only there 4 months out of a year. So
Yep.
I may be changing my mind, but I had some health issues last year. Honestly, 2024 was the absolute, for my personal life, the absolute worst in my entire life. So, and it's made me kind of rethink, what do I want in life? What's important? And having that great weather, sunshine is super important for me. Community, building friends, and having people there, and that's really important. That's what I feel like I'm lacking in Montenegro. So I love Montenegro. It's so beautiful, but it's very small. And I enjoy the escape from crazy busy city life, but I also enjoy crazy busy city life as well. So I'm always like, I go, I love it, it's great. Then there's so many people everywhere all the time. I want to get away. And then I love it here and it's quiet and wonderful. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, there's nothing going on here. It's so boring. I need more people. And I have that constant struggle of wanting both. And so that's why I figured if I have more than one place, that's what may work for me. That I have a place that is quiet and I enjoy it and I love it. And then once I start to get bored, I have the place where I go where then there's lots of people and I have built community and things like that. And trying to figure out how life works within that balance. Now, it's easier for me because it's just me. I'm single,
Hmm.
so I can travel and go. I don't have to, like, my daughter's an adult now. And so I don't have the family concern and input and anything that I have to think about. So, I mean, that's right now. If I meet somebody, then, some of my priorities and things that I want
Yep.
are definitely going to change. And I'm open to that and I'm okay with that. But until that happens, I just have to think like, what do I want to do for me? And when things change, there will be another chapter that it does change. And then obviously I'll rethink things and feel differently about things.
I think that's really important just to be kind of a constant evaluation of what's important to you and different like your chapters ideas is good. Like I just think where am I right now and what's important. Anytime that I start feeling really like stuck, I realize that one of the best exercises is to just start thinking about what do I want, and
Yeah.
what what feels stuck is when you're not making progress or you're just kind of in this messy middle. And I think that's probably a chapter in and of itself is working through that. But I think a way to kind of flip the page is to go back to let's write down what that rich life is. Let's write down some dreams. And I don't think we I mean this is something that's just been so on my mind lately is just I just don't think we take time to really what are we going to do in this tiny little life that we have in this short 100 years or 80 years that we're on here? What do we want? And that'll change, but I think it's important that we whether we're whoever we're with or if it's just by ourselves, but just to say what do I want, and let's start building towards that because we can and we should. We
Right.
owe it to us and everybody else around us.
Absolutely. It's a couple of things of one of because if you're not happy, and I'll go very specific. If you're not happy with you as Adam and happy in life and enjoying life, you're not a good husband. You're not
Hmm.
a good dad. Like, I mean, you might still be good, but you're not the best you can be because if you're not happy and you're stressed out and you're concerned and things are going on, like we're just not. I'm not the best person. If I'm not happy and I'm miserable or I'm angry at everything that's going on and stressed out, I'm not a good friend. I'm not a
Hmm.
good mom. I'm not a good, even though my daughter's like, you can't parent me anymore. I'm an adult. I'm like, okay, I get it. But still I'm not the best friend or person or somebody that people want to be around or even sister, because if I'm not good. So we have to do to a certain degree, we have to make sure that we take care of ourselves because we have to be good to then help and take care of other people around us and make those right decisions. Now, obviously, when we're in relationships and things, there's compromises and nothing is ever 50-50. I always say life is more like a teeter-totter. Sometimes it's 70-30, 80-20. It depends on what's going on. You could be doing really well and being the strong one in the family and doing stuff. And your wife is dealing with other things, and or vice
Hmm.
versa, and something could happen with your extended family or your parents or something, and then your wife is the one that's really kind of holding down the fort and being the solid rock. And that's what a relationship is always about is that balance. And it is about what do each of us want a little bit individually. What do we want together? What do we think about like when it comes to the kids? I know I've got some friends that, they're now living in Mexico and she's like, we're here, we've traveled with our kids, and we know that our kids are probably once they go off to school, we're gonna move. We're gonna start doing things for us because we're gonna be in a place where then our kids can come visit us in whatever country we're in. We will go visit them in whatever country they're going to school in. And because they know that eventually the kids will then have their own lives and families and start doing their own things. And it's kind of sad to think about, but that's the way life goes, right? And they will start to have their own lives. And so we still need to be knowing what we want and what we want to do. And maybe sometimes it's just baby steps toward putting that plan together, knowing that, okay, well, in 10 years, we're going to be empty nesters. And what do we want to be doing in 10 years, right? Do we want to have things set up? So let's just use Thailand for an example. So, like, oh yeah, we start going to Thailand more and more because we know once we become empty nesters, that's where we're going to want to spend more of our time and that's where we're going to want to live. And then we'll come back to the States and visit if our kids are in the States. And to make those still kind of long-term plan, the caveat with that is don't wait to do things we wanna do because we never know how much time we have here,
Or
and
with
so
the
we
people
have
that we
to
have.
enjoy
Yeah,
now.
you're totally right. And you've got, like I think that if there's something on your list and it could be an achievement or it could be an idea or it could be a trip or an adventure. I just think that we owe it to us and the people around us to actually do that. Like the world really needs people to do the things that interest them because I think living in the box to me doesn't really even exist, but we all just put ourselves in this imaginary box and live small lives. And I think just getting out of that and chasing dreams and chasing our hearts is it's been really fulfilling to me. It's not the easiest life and it's not doesn't come without bumps and mistakes and like things like that, but
Mhm.
what an adventure. I'm all for that.
Absolutely, and let's be honest, sitting at home comes with bumps and challenges and frustrations and things as well, and, um, that's life is about learning from mistakes and enjoying it, as you said. So, I don't wanna be taking up much more of your time, but just as a last from your adventures and your travels and everything, especially from the perspective of a family with 4 boys, that's 6 of you, so that's a lot to consider and look at with your travels. What are a couple pieces of advice that you would give to family who is considering doing the same thing, whether it's 1 year, 2 years, or permanently that, maybe yeah, just maybe some advice or things that maybe you wished you would have known before the first time doing this, so now you know for the next time when you go what to prepare
Yeah.
for.
I think if you're going to be on the move, like I said, our goal was about a month at a time, and that's still on the move. And
Mhm.
I mean, I just think it's a pretty natural thing to do, but we just overpacked. And so I think that you can go a lot lighter And something that we just kind of cracked up. It's like a little inside joke between my wife and I'm like, oh, who knew that Paris would have clothes? Like, why, like if you need something, you can just get it where you are. Like pack the
Yes.
essentials and just go with the essentials. And if it gets a little too cold or a little too warm, you can add or take away. Like, I just think that we wish we would have packed a little lighter. And it was funny, just the first few stops through Germany and through as we were moving through Europe, it was like we were just leaving stuff at our Airbnbs because we just had so much stuff. And so
Mm.
I think that's, a carry-on and a backpack is a perfect way to get around. To me, that was that my wife had a carry-on and a fanny pack. That was worked for her. So I think that's good. As far as schooling, I think that we stressed it way too much. I think that we were so worried about what it would happen to our kids. We're not educators. We both went to college and I think we're okay, but like following a program, sitting with your kids, whatever works. We found a term while we were out there called world schooling. And I
Mhm.
don't, I'm in my mind, that means, there's so much more to education than just in a book. And so
Yeah.
I think about the depth and the breadth of understanding that my kids and my wife and I have now was worth as much as almost anything that the the worst thing that happened was my kindergartner didn't read as well as his peers when he started first grade this year. Like that happened and I was so stressed out about it. And here we are, 2 quarters in, halfway through this school year, and he's caught right up and everything's fine. And so I think that yes, do what you got to do, but don't stress about it. It's just not worth it. That would be a big piece of advice. And the best piece of advice that I got that I'm so grateful for because it came true. I had a friend who's a surgeon who was deployed with his family to the Middle East for a few years. Like it was not wartime stuff, but he had been out there and he and his wife loved adventurous eating, like eating all the cultural
Mm.
foods, and his kids really struggled with it. And so he grabbed me before he left and he's like, "Hey, if your kids want McNuggets, just get them the damn nuggets. Like just don't make them go down this, road of crazy stuff all the time or even ever." He's like, "Just don't, it's not worth the fight." And I felt that pull. We're in Japan and I'm like, "You've got to try these, squid balls." And they were like, "No." And I heard, I heard his voice in my Dr. Murdoch. I was like, I need to just go get some damn McNuggets, and I think there's just not also, I think McNuggets outside of the US are a lot different and better and don't make you as sick. So yeah, that would be those little things is just don't stress about the food. School will take care of itself and pack light.
Those are perfect pieces of advice. Well, I just want to say thank you so much, Adam. I've really enjoyed talking with you. We could go on for hours, I'm sure, but it's definitely food for thought and a lot of things for people to consider, but also to relax about and just enjoy and just do it. Just go.
Please go travel. It'll change everything. It changes everything.